أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وآله الطاهرين. Congratulations for the occasion of the birth anniversary of the First Lady of Islam, Fatema Zahra, Salamullah alayha. And inshallah, we will be blessed by the blessings of this occasion. One of the most important things that is sometimes neglected is the way the early Muslims looked at certain people, which it gradually changed over the history. By Muslims, I mean the whole Muslim community. Now, this is especially true about Fatema Zahra, peace be upon her. She was famous for being Sayyida to Nisa al-Alamin among everyone. Now, of course, majority of Muslims may not accept this. They regard other people to be the first lady in Islam or the best lady of Islam. But initially this was not the case. Especially for Fatema Zahra, it was well known that she was Khayru Nisa al-Alamin or Sayyidatu Nisa al-Alamin. For that reason, I want to refer to one letter which was written by Amirul Mu'mineen alayhi salam to Muawiyah. And then I will discuss why she was Khayru Nisa al-Alamin. Now, before the Battle of Siffin, when the armies were actually preparing and negotiations were going on to somehow possibly stop the war, several letters were exchanged between Amirul Mu'mineen and Muawiyah. And of course, Muawiyah was very much advised by Amr ibn As. And one of the things that Muawiyah was trying to do was trying to somehow instigate Ali, peace be upon him, to say something against the caliphs, the first three caliphs. And in one of the latest letters he wrote to Amirul Mu'mineen, he said that you know that the best person after the Prophet was Abu Bakr, and then the best person after him was Umar, and you always felt jealous about them. Now, he is trying in this letter to somehow make Amirul Mu'mineen to say something that, no, this is not right, for example. You are not right in saying all these things. Here, Amirul Mu'mineen says in part of the letter, وَزَعَمْتَ أَنِّي لَكُلِّ الْخُلَفَاءِ حَسَدْتُ. You assume that I was jealous about all the khulafa, the three of them. وَعَلَى كُلِّهِمْ بَغَيْتُ. And you think that I wronged all of them. And then it says, if that is the case, you are not, of course, you don't have any sin in this. This is between me and them. However, now, what he was trying to do, he was trying to somehow make Ali to mention something against the Khulafa, to make the fitna bigger. We know that, of course, it was something which was established that, okay, now after the Prophet, the Khulafa have come, and we have to respect them. And if Ali, peace be upon him, was going to say something against that, it was certainly against him. And we see that he was never insulting or saying something against them, except in perhaps very, very few occasions which he, maybe as he says, شَقْشَقَةٌ هَدَرَتْ ثُمَّ غَرَّتْ. It was something which somehow exploded out, and then I controlled it, and you never can hear from me. Now, this issue that who is the best person after the Prophet, that he was Abu Bakr, then Umar, then Uthman, then later on, later centuries, after the Umayyads, they said, and then the fourth one was Ali. the person who probably somehow devised this order of merit between the companions was Muawiyah. And he explicitly mentions this in his letter, that the best person after the Prophet was Abu Bakr, then Umar, then Uthman. Now, Amir al-Mu'mineen says that he doesn't mention in his reply. Of course, the letter of Muawiyah is mentioned in Ibn Abul Hadid's commentary on Nahj al-Balagha. Here, in Nahj al-Balagha, of course, we don't have the letter of Muawiyah. It's recorded there. Now, here, Amir al-Mu'mineen mentions that زعمت أن أفضل الناس في الإسلام فلان وفلان. You have assumed that the best people in Islam were such and such people. He doesn't mention any name. وإن فذكرت أمرا إن تم اعتزلك. Now you have mentioned something which, even if it's true, it's got nothing to do with you. Why you mention such things? You are not one of us. You are someone who actually accepted Islam after you struck your last strike of sword against the Prophet, and you had to surrender when the Mecca was conquered. So this has got nothing to do with you. وَمَا أَنْتَ وَالْفَاضِلَ وَالْمَفْضُولَ. How? It is not befitting you to talk about who has higher merit and lower merit. وَالسَّائِسَ وَالْمَسُوسِ. Who should be a leader and who should follow. This is not your cup of tea, so to speak. وَمَا لِلطُّلَقَاءِ وَأَبْنَاءِ الطُّلَقَاءِ وَالتَّمِيزِ بَيْنَ الْمُهَاجِرِينَ الْأَوَّلِينَ وَتَرْتِيبَ دَرَجَاتِهِمْ. And how the tulaqa, tulaqa is the nickname for those who surrendered to the Prophet after the conquest of Mecca, and the Prophet captured all of them. They were captured. And then they were fearful, frightened what Prophet was going to do with them. And the Prophet said, اذهبوا وأنتم الطلاقة. Go, I release you. I free you, go. And then they had to actually, to be part of the community, they had to surrender and submit to Islam. This is the meaning of tulaqa. What is the business of tulaqa and children of tulaqa? To distinguish between the first muhajirin, meaning Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman, and himself. If there is any difference between us, that is not for you to decide. وَمَا لِلطُّلَقَاءِ وَأَبْنَاءِ الطُّلَقَاءِ وَالتَّمِيزِ بَيْنَ الْمُهَاجِرِينَ الْأَوَّلِينَ وَتَرْتِيبَ دَرَجَاتِهِمْ وَتَعْرِيفَ دَرَجَاتِهِمْ. To say who has higher merit, or what is their station, what is their grade. So, of course, this plot did not work. Here, Amir al-Mu'mineen does not mention anything. The only thing he says that it is not your business to decide about the Muhajirun. You are not one of the Muhajirun, certainly. You did not migrate while the Prophet was inviting people to come to Islam. You just surrendered after the conquest of Mecca, so don't talk about this. Then he talks about Uthman, that Uthman, I offered Uthman help, he rejected, he did not answer. He asked help from you, you did not help him. So who is actually the culprit in the death of Uthman, in the murder of Uthman? Such things. Now, this is just an introduction. What I wanted to say is that you think that, yes, of course, you have become a Muslim, you have declared that you are a Muslim, and then we regarded you as Muslim, we regard all your families as Muslims, then we intermixed, then we started to marry off our girls to you, you married off your girls to us, then you think the situation is confused for you. You think that because now you are part of the community, everything is forgotten about your past. أن خلطناكم بأنفسنا فنكحنا وأنكحنا فعل الأكفاء. You think that because we mixed with each other and our children married with each other and we regarded you to be equal, that's why we gave daughters to you, you gave daughters to us, we married off our children to each other. Now you think that the spiritual status is the same as well? Of course, I mean, marriage is a different issue than the spiritual status. We know that, for example, Asiya was the wife of Pharaoh. It does not reduce from the merit of Asiya and does not add anything to the merit of Pharaoh. And vice versa. For example, Allah talks about the wife of Nuh and wife of Lut. It did not add any merit to them. And in the history, we have lots of these things. Imam al-Jawad alayhi salam was poisoned by his own wife, who was the daughter of Ma'mun. Does it mean that because he married daughter of Ma'mun, they were equal in their spiritual station? Of course not. And we can find this. Sometimes we think, it is somehow made us, we are made to think that if such and such married with such and such person, then that means that they have equal merits. It's not the case at all. And this is what Amirul Mu'minin mentions here, that you think that because we intermixed and intermarried, then we are equal. وَلَسْتُمْ هُنَاكَ. Of course, you are not in that position. وَأَنَّا يَكُونُ ذَلِكَ. Now let me tell you the difference between the two. مِنَّ النَّبِيِّ وَمِنْكُمُ الْمُكَذِّبِ. From us, on our side, is the prophets. From your side is the denier, Abu Jahl, who was from Banu Umayyah. وَمِنَّا أَسَدُ اللَّهِ وَمِنْكُمْ أَسَدُ الْأَحْلَافِ. From us, we have Asadullah, Sayyid al-Shuhada, Hamza. Hamza was dubbed as Asadullah by the Prophet, peace be upon him, the lion of Allah. On your side, who can you mention? Asadul Ahlaf, the lion of the pledge, who actually gathered pledge against the Prophet in the Battle of Ditch, Ghazwatul Khandaq, Ghazwatul Ahzab. Abu Sufyan is on your side, and Hamza is on our side. وَمِنَّا Sayyida Shabab Ahl al-Jannah. On our side are the master of the youth of the paradise, Hassan and Hussein. وَمِنْكُمْ سَبْيَةُ النَّارِ. And on your side are children of hell. These were the children of Banu Umayyah, who later on became caliphs. And the Prophet, while they were children, had predicted or had foreseen that these are going to become as such. وَمِنَّا خَيْرُ نِسَاءِ الْعَالَمِينَ. And from us is خَيْرُ نِسَاءِ الْعَالَمِينَ. This here he is referring to Fatema, peace be on her. وَمِنْكُمْ حَمَّالَةُ الْحَطَبِ. On your side, if I want to mention women, on your side is Jamil, your aunt, the sister of Abu Sufyan, which the Quran mentions her, who was wife of Abu Lahab. تَبَّتْ يَدَا أَبِي لَهَبٍ وَتَبْ مَا أَغْنَى عَنْهُ مَالُهُ وَمَا كَسَبْ سَيَصْلَى نَارًا ذَاتَ لَهَبٍ وَامْرَأَتُهُ حَمَّالَةَ الْحَطَبِ. His wife brings fuel. Now, fuel of the hell in this world was bringing the fuel to the mischief of Abu Lahab, and of course in that world she brings the fuel for fire. Now, looking at this pedigree, at this family history of Muawiyah and Amirul Mu'minin, one is really amazed that later on Muslims started to talk about who was right, Muawiyah or Ali, who was on the right side. You see how propaganda works, and people become confused. And of course, for 100 years, Banu Umayyah were in power. They actually made this a belief of the Muslims that all the companions are equal. Muawiyah and Ali, both of them are equal. We do not judge them, for example. And because they were companions of the Prophet. Now, in this letter, Amirul Mu'minin says, look at your pedigree, look at your background, look who you are, and look who we are. Now, what I wanted to say is, Minna Khayrun Nisa al-Alamin. This title for Fatima, peace be upon her, Khayrun Nisa al-Alamin, was something that everyone had approved and accepted, that this was something the Prophet said. Otherwise, Amirul Mu'minin wouldn't have mentioned this in the letter, because then Muawiyah would have objected and written another letter that no, we do not accept that Fatima was Khayrun Nisa al-Alamin, for example. He doesn't bring anything here which would be criticized or a point of objection by Muawiyah. So it was clearly known that Fatima was خير نساء العالمين, the best woman in the world. Why was she? Why she was like that? What made her? We know that she died at a very young age. The least age they mention for her is 18. The highest age they mention for her is about 28. 28 years, 30 years. Well, they differ on they do not differ on the year of her demise, although they differ on the month of her demise, but they do not differ on the year of her demise. What they differ on is the year of her birth. Now, for example, Mufid puts her age 23, Kholeini puts her age 18, some others put her age 28. Usually the Sunni scholars put her age 28 when she passed away. So, a very young lady, anyhow, with any sort of estimation, she was very young. She died at a young age, but why she became خير نساء العالمين? What made her to be like that? Now, one of the issues which has always been the point of contention between Shia and Sunni, which is still meaningful. You know, many things which are mentioned about Shia and Sunni is not meaningful. Like, for example, what has passed in the history, that's not something that we are bothered about. What Muawiyah did, what happened, for example, at the time of Uthman, these are history. A meaningful difference, which is now between Shia and Sunni, and this is meaningful for us now, it's not historical, is that from whom should we receive our knowledge of the Sunnah and the Quran? This is important. And you see, there's a huge gap there. Those people who want to somehow make gaps by insulting other people's sacraments or those whom they respect, I think they are just making fitna. That's not the case. This difference is a logical difference, is a logic that we have to sort it out, not by insulting each other, but by accepting that this difference is there. Whoever would like can follow this route, whoever would like can follow that route, without insulting each other. Now, the main difference is that we believe that after the Prophet, there were certain people who were inspired in their knowledge. This is no shirk, that we believe that some people have extra knowledge. Sometimes superficial people say that if you believe that a human being has some knowledge of ghaib or something, you are mushrik. Why? Very interesting. You know, Mutawakkil and before him, Mu'tasim, they had a wazir called Umar ibn al-Faraj. And this Umar ibn al-Faraj was very much against Ahlul Bayt. And ironically, he had a brother called Muhammad ibn al-Faraj who was very much dedicated to Ahlul Bayt. Now, this Umar ibn al-Faraj was a wazir of the Khulafa, of Mu'tasim and Wasiq and Mutawakkil. And once he was sitting by Dijla with Imam al-Jawad alayhi salam. And all the time he wanted to somehow mention something against the Imam or against their belief or something like that. Now, once he was sitting with Imam al-Jawad, and Imam al-Jawad was very young, of course, and said, they say that you know what is beneath this sea or this water. What is beneath this water? That no one can know. The Imam said, do you believe that it is not possible for God to give this knowledge to a mosquito, to a fly? Can God give this knowledge to a mosquito? Or he cannot? He said, yes, of course, God can give this knowledge to the Muslim. He said, if God can give that knowledge to that very tiny creature, couldn't he give that knowledge to a human being? So he was dumbfounded. What to say? That's, of course, God can give any knowledge to anyone. Like, for example, what is mentioned in Surah Al-Kahf about Khidr. فوجد عبدا من عبادنا آتيناه رحمة من عندنا وعلمناه من لدنا علما. We had taught him some knowledge. And that knowledge was part of it, that he knew what is going to happen in future. And he was working on the, of course, order of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to change things in this world. Is it possible that Allah would give that knowledge to someone or not? Now, sometimes the superficial people would say that if you believe such things about a human being, it is shirk. Because there's no prophet after our prophet. This is not prophethood. This is knowledge that Allah grants to certain of His servants. Now, about Fatima, peace be upon her, this knowledge is proven in many different traditions. One of the famous traditions and very reliable ones from Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq alayhi salam, he says that لِفَاطِمَةَ تِسْأَةُ أَسْمَاءٍ عِنْدَ اللَّهِ عَزَّ وَجَلَّ. Fatima has 9 names with Allah. Now, 9 names with Allah, of course, we will give titles, attributes to people in this world. But when it says "Inda Allah" means they are real. They are not just titles. You may call someone sir or whatever, lady. This is a title we give to people. There may be no reality behind it. Or we may call someone an alim or whatever. There may be no reality behind it. However, when Imam alayhi salam mentions that Fatima has 9 names in the Allah Azza wa Jal, means that these are real things. These are not just titles. She has these attributes in her. Okay, one of the names is Fatima because, as we have mentioned, it is not a name which is given to him by the Prophet, although Prophet named her Fatima, but Fatima as its meaning, which is Futimat min ash-shar, she's cut off from evil. The evil has no access to her. This is her name in Allah. That's the reality. Fatima was Siddiqa wal Mubaraka was Zakiya wal Radiya wal Marziya wal Muhaddatha was Zahra. Now, I don't want to talk about those other 8 names. I want to talk about this Muhaddatha. This is the main point of difference between us and those who do not believe in such an attribute for Fatima to Zahra and for our A'imma alayhi salam. Because it's not only Fatima who is Muhaddatha. We have in Hadith, إِنَّ أَوْسِيَاءَ مُحَمَّدٍ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ Muhaddathun. All the awsiya of the Prophet were muhaddath. They could actually have that inspired knowledge from Allah. Muhaddath literally means someone who is spoken to. He is spoken to from somewhere. And they are not prophets. Take the example of Isa alayhi salam and Simon Peter, Shamun al-Safa, for example. We know that it's both in our traditions and it's in the Bible, in the accounts, in the Gospel, in the accounts of Simon Peter, that after Jesus, he could do those things that Jesus could do. He could cure the leopard, he could have the knowledge of the ghaib and all these. Simon Peter was not a prophet, but he was a wasi of Isa alayhi salam. And he was a muhaddath. He had that knowledge. Now, for awsiya of Muhammad, for those who believe that Prophet had awsiya, and he did not just left us without having any wasi, anyone who has this inspired knowledge, all of them are muhaddathun. And this hadith. We have in the Quran. The Quran mentions certain people who are muhaddath. Like for example, Dhul Qarnayn was muhaddath. Inshallah, in Surah Al-Kahf, when we come to the story of muhaddath, we'll see that he was not a prophet, but the Quran says Allah was speaking to him. He was receiving inspirations from God. Maryam, peace be on her, in the Quran, we read, this is very clear, she could see the angels. Angels communicated to her. Now, she was not a prophetess, but she was a muhaddatha. She was a muhaddatha. That is, she was spoken to by God. God spoke to her in a different way, not in the way that he spoke to prophets, but in a different way. So, if Fatima Zahra is a muhaddatha, that makes her to be khayrun nisa al-alamin. Of course, we have heard many sort of incidents and anecdotes about her behavior, her manners, her treatment of her children, her husband, but these are not. Of course, this could be found in every mu'minah lady. So if someone has real iman, she would behave the same. This is not what distinguishes Fatima from others. What distinguishes her from others, even from men, is this quality of being muhaddatha. She was inspired, she had inspired knowledge. And that is why we see when she spoke, this knowledge, this inspiration, it really came through from every sentence. In the khutbah fadakiyah that she made in the mosque in Medina, she mentions certain things which is really strange, that how someone who never had given a sermon, who never had spoken to an audience, can come out with such an eloquence and such highly meaningful statements. In the beginning of the khutbah, when she's talking to Muhajirun and Ansar, when she actually gives her testimony, one of the sentences she says, which shows how deep this knowledge, this inspired knowledge was in her heart. She says, وَأَشْهَدُ أَنْ لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا اللَّهِ شَهَادَةً كَلِمَةً. I bear witness that there is no God beside Allah, but this La ilaha illallah is just a kalima, it's just a sentence. Now, what is the meaning of this sentence? كَلِمَةً جَعَلَ الْإِخْلَاصَ تَأْوِيلَهَا وَضَمَّنَ فِي الْقُلُوبِ مَوْصُولَهَا وَأَنَارَ فِي التَّفَكُّرِ مَعْقُولَهَا. Now, it is dazzling. I mean, this is huge knowledge in 3 sentences that she is actually teaching us. That La ilaha illallah is a sentence, but the interpretation of that sentence is your actions, is ikhlas. جَعَلَ الْإِخْلَاصَ تَأْوِيلَهَا. You say La ilaha illallah, but how does it translate? How does it manifest itself in your actions? It is La ilaha, it is ikhlas. You say La ilaha illallah, but it is a sentence, it is a word. How do we have any way to understand the real meaning of this? It's our heart. ضَمَّنَ الْقُلُوبَ مَوْصُولَهَا. The meaning of this is contained in the heart. Allah has made it to be contained in the heart. And it's not only heart, it's not only action, even logically, by argument, by demonstration, we can find that there is La ilaha illallah, there is no God beside Allah. Anara fi tafakkur, He has enlightened the minds, the thoughts, with the understanding of it, with the argument for it. You see, this cannot come from an ordinary person. We haven't found any anyone who has spoken in this way. Some people say that this khutbah fadakiya is made up. Okay, I mean, you can say anything is made up. You can say Quran is made up. But if you can find someone who can make up such sentence, we defer to them. They are really very knowledgeable people. Those who have knowledge of this, who have spiritual knowledge, those who have knowledge of the Quran, they realize that these words cannot come from an ordinary person. So this is why she has become khayru nisa'il alameen. Now let me mention one hadith from Imam al-Baqir and I finish my talk, and that is about tasbih of Fatima. We say it every day. Maybe just absent-mindedly if we say it very quickly. We just want to finish tasbih and takbir and tahmid. Now Imam al-Baqir alayhi salam says, Ma ubidallah bishay'in min at-tahmid afdal min tasbih Fatima alayhi salam. Allah has not been praised by anything higher, better than tasbih Fatima. Now, you know the story of tasbih Fatima, that Prophet actually gave Fatima this dhikr as a gift, as a replacement for her grievances. We know the stories. Now, first of all, why Fatima was given such a gift? This dhikr. Those of you who are after some dhikr to say, that, and you want to find out what dhikr we have to say, you go to different people, what dhikr I should say. I tell you, just say this dhikr with the presence of the heart. That's good. That's enough. You don't need anything more. No one can give you any dhikr higher than tasbih Fatima. And this is what Imam Baqir alayhi salam is saying. Ma ubidallah bishay'in afdal min tasbih Fatima alayhi salam. Allah has not been worshipped with any praise. This is the more accurate meaning of this hadith. Allah has never been worshipped with any other praise higher than tasbih Fatima. And this is of course because of her position, her spiritual position, her inspired knowledge, and her position among the muhaddathun and muhaddathat. Inshallah, Allah gives us the blessings of this pure soul and make us the obedient followers of our lights who enlighten our heart. Wa sallallahu ala Muhammadin wa alihi tahirin.
We have some time for questions, if there are any questions from the sister side. Otherwise from the brother side?
Assalamu alaikum. Shaykh, you mentioned that because of the letter that Imam Ali would have sent to Muawiyah, and Imam Ali wouldn't say something unless the Prophet has said it. Okay, and that's why he mentioned Khairun Nisa'il Alameen, Fatima Zahra alayhi salam. Sorry for my question. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who sent the Prophet Muhammad alayhi salam, mentioned in the Quran, Malaika saying to Fatima that Inna Allah astafaki wa tahharaki wa astafaki. To Maryam, sorry. To Maryam. Yes. Astafaki wa tahharaki wa astafaki ala nisa'il alameen. The Mufassirin, they are saying that's Nisa Zamaniha, that period. But this is, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when mention anything in the Quran, it's for the entire period. It's not for a specific period. And that's why He's mentioning stories that we can learn on our time and in the future from the past. So this, yes, I believe that Fatima Zahra alayhi salam, her maqam is very high, and bid'atu Rasulillah, Ummu Abiha, all this, yes, I accept it. But she's one of the 4 women in Khairun Nisa'il Alameen, Asiya, as you mentioned, Khadija alayhi salam, Maryam, and Fatima. But when it comes to ranking, do we have to rank, or she's one of the 4 it's better?
Well, you know, we have a tradition. I mean, we don't have to. I mean, this is just what we want to know. Otherwise, this is not part of, for example, the Aqidah or anything like that, that we should say that, yes, you have to believe that Fatima was better than Maryam. It is not part of the Aqidah. But when the Prophet, peace be on him, said that Fatima to Sayyida to Nisa al-Alameen, in tradition we have that she asked, but is not Maryam Sayyida to Nisa al-Alameen? Is she not the one that the Quran mentions? And the Prophet said, yes, but the explanation of that is that she was the best woman of her time, and you are the best woman of all times. Now, this type of language is used in Quran in other places. For example, about Banu Israel, فَضَّلْنَاهُمْ عَلَى الْعَالَمِينَ. We chose them over all alameen. Now, is it in all times or in their time? Certainly it's in their times, because after the Prophet came, there was no tafdheel for them. They had to follow the Prophet. They didn't. And not only that, tafdheel did not remain, but it went, because they did not follow the Prophet. So when the Quran talks about the Jews, that he chose them over all the alameen, whatever it means, we realize that it refers to their own time. It doesn't refer to all times. And there is a possibility that when talking about Istafaka ala nisa al-alameen, especially istifa, which is a specific act, which should refer actually to women of her own time. There is a possibility that this refers to the women of her own time, and of course Fatima is above her. Now, if we don't want to accept or rely, it doesn't matter. It's not something which is part of the Aqidah.
Any questions from the sister side? Any from the brothers? Okay, I think we'll end there. Salawat.